Redevelopment Commission is called to order. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. And if everyone would stand, we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that is available on the table in the back of the room. Roll call. Judy, would you conduct roll call, please?
Dr. David White.
Present.
Darren Murphy.
Here.
Present. Jamie Humphrey.
Here.
Harold Foley.
Here.
Mark Bauer.
Thank you. Next item is approval of minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review all of our minutes from last month. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are not any corrections to the minutes, they stand approved as presented. Moving on to old business. First item is Honorable Josh Marsh, Mayor, to speak with us.
Oh, you even made the agenda, Ron. You should have put yourself first.
It's an old habit, I think.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Last month I had asked about pursuing some opportunities for marketing of the property, particularly the 4 lots you own on Veterans Way. And I had spoken with Brian Robbins, director of the EDC, who's here this evening, and he's going to talk a little bit after me as well. But we had arrived at the best path forward probably is a commercial realtor. And so Rose Cronley, who is the new director of Main Street Greensburg, has a lot of history in Indianapolis and is also a realtor and had some connections. So she put me in contact with Bob Lindgren, who is vice president of Lee and Associates, a commercial only real estate firm in Indianapolis, and he's been there for 30 years, worked with MIBOR and the Indiana Association of Realtors and the National. And the way Rose knew him is through her work with the city of Indianapolis in economic development. And so he's had several roles focused on economic development and community spaces through Indianapolis. And his firm is represented through 50 offices across the nation, but they're all locally owned by local brokers. So it's kind of like a franchise style. And his discussion I had with him was about like regional and some national reach, so that when we market with them, it would be much broader than even just central Indiana. It would really be kind of Midwest wide. They are an all commercial firm, and we talked a little bit about their strategy and what he's seeing in the current market, and he thought that the retail space, which I think is generally what we envision these spaces to be, is trending positive even after with the current discussions about retail marketing and those types of things. I asked him how he approaches this, if we're going to just go after a specific company or real estate developer. He says we do that based on some market research that they'll do, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we take a rifle and a shotgun approach in the idea that we will target some that we've worked with, but then we'll also kind of just blast it out and see what we get. They do operate on a 1-year contract with what I think is a standard real estate commission style. It's a 6% commission. And I asked him about redevelopment commissions have the ability to fluctuate their price on property quite a bit. And how is that fair to them if they work on it for a year and the redevelopment commission decides maybe we really do want to incentivize this and reduce the price a lot. Well, 6% of a lot less is a lot less. And he says they have a piece of their contract that they include for redevelopment commissions that would work through a formula to say, okay, the long-term impact that the redevelopment commission is going to see is this, and our commission would have been this, and we can set it up that way. So he's very familiar with working with redevelopment commissions and is very willing to do that. They are success driven, so we would not owe them any money unless the property is actually sold. Which I think is probably very important, because I asked about the difference between vacant land and land with structures or already developed. He said, the vacant land market is useful, it is busy, it has transactions, but they do take longer than something that's already developed. So that's kind of what we arrived at. I asked him about next steps. They want it, and I offered to bring him next month if you so choose. But some next steps would be that they would come visit. They would look at our growth patterns. They would look at some gap analysis. What are we missing in the market? What would be a suitable fit for the region, those size lots? And then they would also recommend a price to us to list them. And after we would sign a contract with them, then they would start to do those types of things, and then 4 to 6 weeks to get us on the market. I'm happy to answer questions, but I think maybe Brian, if you want to weigh in
Sure.
about our conversations, and then how the EDC can help supplement that too.
Yeah, I can show you. This is kind of some of what we've been doing so far, and just pass these around when it comes to retail. I will first and foremost say that, again, I'm Director of Economic Development Corporation. I will say from our resources on the state level, our site clearinghouse, they do not allow retail spots to be advertised on the state clearinghouse. So we're limited in that sense. In the past, what I have done is with material like this, gone to some conferences, retail conferences and such, and gone face to face with targeted, I think, to the mayor's sense, the rifle and the shotgun. I would contact specific businesses that had an interest in us in the past and such. Unfortunately, those kind of conferences and such have not continued after COVID. They just really haven't rebounded just yet, so we haven't had those outlets as much. Between that and my time being pulled towards other projects in the community, we haven't been able to concentrate on the retail market quite as much as we had hoped, and that's why I was, in talking with the mayor, I thought one of the best strategies actually is to get a dedicated commercial retail person. We will continue to market it, and we will continue to meet with developers, and I look forward to working in concert with the retail, the commercial realtor. We look at it as an asset. We're a resource for them, and we'll continue to help as much as possible. But I think if you guys have a timeline in your mind to want to turn this property, I think that would be the best approach.
Any questions for Brian or I on that? Any direction you'd like for us to proceed or not?
It's not making us any money sitting there, so.
Yeah, I feel the same if we had moved down that path and involved in it.
Okay, I'm going to propose that at your meeting next month that I've told Bob I'd get back to him and invite him to come to the meeting. Let him give the sales pitch to you about why you should select their firm. I don't know, I'm going to take Rose's word. In my conversation with Bob, it was very positive. He was very helpful, not pushy, but I did say, the redevelopment commission is going to have to make this. So with that, I think I will probably ask him to go ahead and draft a contract for your review. I'll ask him to come to next month's meeting, or a representative of the firm, and give the presentation and answer questions from you. If you are so inclined at that point to move forward with signing the contract, you would have it for review. And if you want to wait a month and review it or make changes or however you see fit, you're not under any obligation to agree to it next month. But I don't know that it's worth having him come do that and then spend a month getting the contract together without being able to see what's in it first, is my personal opinion.
Could we get that contract to the attorney so he can look at that before the meeting?
Yes, we typically try to have everything in a week before, but we will. I think it should be pretty boilerplate because it seems like they probably do it. And I'm assuming they'll probably do it for each parcel. I imagine there could be 4 contracts maybe. But yeah, I will definitely do that.
Thank you.
And again, I don't leave thinking we're going to try to pressure you into it being signed next month. Just if you so choose, then it would save us a month.
Right.
Could you give me his name again?
It's Bob, Lindgren,
Name of the company again?
Lee and Associates in Indianapolis. I will warn you, there's a couple websites that use their name that links to sort of like an online store of real estate property, so be sure that you're looking at the Lee and Associates official website. Because I was halfway through my conversation with him and I'm like, I don't think this is your website. And he's like, no, that's some sub thing. So, yeah, okay. Thank you all.
Next item, Mr. May, discussion of residential development project.
Now it's really my turn. Since your last meeting, we have met with Beacon Builders a couple of times. One of those meetings was to discuss the lift station specifically. Darren was able to sit in on that. I would say that was a positive discussion, but there are questions. Is that fair?
Yep.
And they're doing some research and getting us, Zeke Smith, our wastewater superintendent, was there also, and we talked about the city's needs. That's moving forward. It's not concluded yet. The other meeting was to talk about the planning process. It's come to light, let me back up. So, right about the time or shortly after you bought this property, it was rezoned to R1, single family residential. The prime motivator for the R1 zoning designation was to prevent duplexes. In talking with Beacon Builders, they tell us, so an R1 lot has a minimum of 80-foot wide frontage. An R2 lot has a minimum of 70-foot wide frontage. The other significant difference, an R1 lot has a 10-foot side yard requirement. An R2 parcel has a minimum of a 6-foot side yard requirement. Beacon has told us that in order to get the, I've forgotten the number, is it 72 or is it 74? 72. In order to get 72 lots, they cannot make the 80-foot front yard width work. They also tell us that there's a really big demand today for 3-car garages. And as we look around in newer developments, we do see a lot of 3-car garages. They say the 3-car garage makes it difficult to get by with a 10-foot side yard. They said what they think they'll end up with are like 7.5-foot side yards, so wider than an R2 required, but not as wide as an R1. And on down your agenda for tonight is a discussion about signing a petition, since you technically own the property, signing a petition to the Planning Commission and the council to rezone the property to R2. And the proposal is that if that is rezoned, there would be a covenant placed on the deed that duplexes could not be constructed in that neighborhood. So we get the protection, if that's the right word, with the restriction against 2-family residences, but by making the lots slightly smaller and the side yards slightly smaller, everything can be made to work. So that's one thing we need to figure out to go forward. And by the way, Beacon Builders have signed the petition for rezoning in that they may own this property before this process is concluded. So if you elect to do so, it will be the Redevelopment Commission and the contract purchaser, if that's a fair term.
Yes, that's correct. And the planning department contacted me earlier this month to ask about the best way to move forward if we are so inclined. Given the timing of it, I think it is prudent to have them sign the initial petition because it is they are developing it. They are going to be the ones that are really asking for this rezone. But to the extent that you are still the property owner, I believe that you also need to be involved in that. in terms of equally signing the petition and jointly presenting it to the planning commission and the council. And we had that issue recently come up in a different, but similar bent where someone who was purchasing a piece of property was asking for a variance, and he didn't actually own it yet. So we asked him to secure ownership of it or have the owner make the request. So this would be a consistent application of prior recommendations and procedures.
Ron, does Beacon see any drawbacks to marketing those houses with the smaller footprint?
They're the ones that drove this entire discussion. They think this is the right solution for the development, to put words in their mouth, and I don't mean to do that, but they were asking for the slightly narrower side yards and the slightly narrower lots. They say they can't get the 72 on that site if we hold them to the 80-foot and the 10-foot.
I would also note there is some language in your underlying agreement that requires the marketing that they are going for to be of a certain caliber and nature. So to the extent that you're potentially concerned about, if we go to an R2 and we have smaller lots, are we not going to be able to market the buildings for the cost that we want to see at that level of development? I presume that they've also read the contract and are aware of the fact that they have an obligation and requirement of the contract to try and sell those houses at a certain level. So I just wanted to remind you that that is a safeguard and protection that is in your agreement.
Can they express the position that having the 3-car garage was more valuable than having a slightly wider side yard? They would much rather be able to develop the 3 cars, and maybe not everyone, but a number of them, and that would work out better for everyone in the long run.
Lot width, something where they're over 70, but not quite meeting 80, so they're somewhere.
They said they can meet 70 easily, but there were a few lots that couldn't meet 80.
Some there may be some that are 80 or some that are 75.
There may be some wider than 80.
But the majority of them would be, in theory, would be 80.
I don't want to say majority because I haven't carefully studied the plat, but
Some.
yeah.
Okay.
So some number between none and all.
Yes.
Yeah.
With a front yard width of 70 to infinity and beyond. They are working through, they tell me, the final items that we discussed in our meeting. They are moving forward on the preliminary drainage design for their parcel as well as your 2 parcels that we had previously discussed, them including in their drainage work. And they plan to appear before the Plan Commission in May. So they're planning on submitting their application in April and appearing before the Plan Commission in May. And so they're working towards getting things going forward. The other item is the transfer of title and the mortgage and that. Chris, do you care to?
Yeah, I would say I've begun working on that language, but I sort of wanted to wait and I sort of want to see what happens with the R2, R1 variance idea, and because I thought it was a better process to ask for it with the jointly. It's not completed yet, but I am working on it and would anticipate having it probably at your March meeting, if their timeline is April, and we can get the mortgage approved here, then we can have the closing sometime before that April request.
I suppose if that didn't happen, could the redevelopment commission and Beacon Builders jointly petition for the plat?
They could, and I think that would be the necessary steps. But kind of I don't want to give away your property until we're ready to give away your property. But yeah, it is in process.
Other questions?
Thank you. Want to move on to the next item then?
Yes, the plan list. So a while back, a small group met, the mayor was involved. I'm confused, David, were you involved? You were involved, not Ken, and Durham was involved, and we talked about the plan list, and when that conversation concluded, we didn't have anything. But I don't know that you all ever formally ended that review process. In the meantime, there has been some internal discussion. This is another item further down on your agenda about a multi-use path connecting, in the big picture, Veterans Way to 4th Street, let's say, near North Park. That could then at some point continue further south and theoretically meet one of your already included items on your plan list, which is to connect Veterans Way to Park Road. That could be a leg of that. Included in a project like that would be a bridge over State Road 3. That would provide safe pedestrian crossing. So,
Can you just shrink it?
there we go. So the city owns various pieces of property along, oops, let me get the right spot here. Along Smith Road here, we own this property, we own property clear down, this is the water treatment plant, so we own property there. So the conversation has been, is that an opportunity to get a multi-use path in there that's separate and therefore safer to cross 3? So the question has come up, is it behoove the city, and when I say city, it could include you all if you want to participate in what I will call a feasibility study to see what it would take to do something like that. Both the practicality of doing it and the cost of doing it. There is some federal money out there relative to transportation geared towards communities, neighborhoods that are divided by transportation features such as State Road 3. It's a program run at the national level. It's a competitive program. Do we have a chance at that or not? Don't know. But if we did such a feasibility study, we could ask our consultant to look into that to see if there's any funding help there. It's a chance to look at different ways to do something like this.
Oh, we've had some casual discussions in the past about doing a bridge over 3.
There have been discussions at various locations. The attractive feature about the Smith Road alignment, So the bridge has to meet ADA, which is about how steep the trail up to the bridge can be. That's the driving feature there. When you do it at an existing intersection, either put in a spiral or ramp, or the ramp runs way out and gets in the way of a lot of other things. Along this alignment, where there's nothing there previously or currently, there's a chance to ramp that on out and get that in there without some unusual features.
Isn't there a lot of, it's a utility corridor if I'm.
It is that.
So if you build a bridge over the top of it, make it pretty difficult to get to those utilities if you ever have to.
That's a part of the bridge building process, is utility coordination, so those are things that would be dealt with.
You be looking at other locations besides that Smith Road one? Feasibility?
Sure.
We had looked at Lincoln.
Lincoln, we do have the pedestrian phase in the signal there, so we have some protection for the pedestrians, but that's the only place anywhere on 3.
Seems to me like we talked about a bridge across there in the state. I believe shot it down, didn't they, Mayor?
Not during my time.
Okay, maybe it was pre-Marsh time then.
Where were you thinking, Darrell?
There at Lincoln Street.
At Lincoln
I remember a discussion about that, and then the state was not on board with it or something. May have been.
I don't recall it, so I would say Herbert 4.
I think I vaguely remember that conversation, and the issue was because of 3 and the bypass and all of the other things that go into that. I would, probably note to you that at least that particular location that Ron's showing you would have at least some reduction in land acquisition costs, because you already own several of because the city, who I'm sure would cooperate fully with these efforts, already owns a pretty good chunk of that dirt. Particularly as you get closer and closer to 3, the appraised value and the perceived value of the property tends to be higher. So I don't know if it offsets what they have to do to be able to deal with the utility issues, but it would at least be something to be cognizant of. I would also note to you that if you are interested in pursuing, a project like this, there's the process of amending the plan that we will need to go through, and that generally takes a couple of meetings to get accomplished.
I think, Chris, they already have in their plan towards the bottom, I think. Is there not something for a trail connecting Veterans Way to City Park?
It's number 7.
I believe there is something similar to that, so yeah.
It could.
You could fall under that.
Number 7 on that list, I think, pertains to that.
So you would not have to amend it because you don't have to, they're
Back-
not prioritized. It
Right.
just has to be on the list.
Back to the original discussion though, is do you all want to continue to work on that list and identify any additional projects? Veterans Way is complete.
I would say with Veterans Way winding down like it has, it's probably time to look at that again.
I wonder if we should have set up an ad hoc committee and review that and maybe make any recommendations.
Probably on review the ones, because still haven't been done, and maybe we can reprioritize them a little bit.
And make sure you haven't omitted something
Yeah.
that's well needed.
You may also look to see if there's any of your projects that could be tweaked or otherwise utilized to help in the residential development. The area surrounding what you're seeking to accomplish out there.
We could have 2
two of our members on the committee.
Ken, would you be available, anybody else?
Volunteer.
Daryl and Ken with
Okay. I would ask all of you to think about things and give to Daryl and Ken, and I can be the clearinghouse for that, whatever those ideas are. And I think this maybe is the point in the process where we truly brainstorm. We don't limit our thinking before the group reviews it, whether I think a better approach is to put everything out there and sift through that and see what's doable and valuable.
I'd like to propose that we get some input, if possible, from the mayor and Ryan as to what they would see,
I
not tonight,
suspect
but
the
in
mayor
the
would be
future as
willing
to
to sit
things
in on
that
that group.
we could be doing that would help the city also.
You may also consider approaching, normal citizens, just, seeking out a public representative to see if they have any thoughts.
And remember, you do have your capital improvements plan that you had prepared a year or 2 years ago.
Well, have you seen that overpass 11 and do something like that?
Can you coordinate a meeting for that there, Ron?
I can.
They got time.
And maybe we'll not have a final answer for you next month, but have something to report back.
Okay.
So that's going to be the follow-up on revising the project list.
Okay. Why don't we move on to new business then? First item is agricultural lease.
You have 2 leases before you. The 2 are ones that had submitted a year ago. The one, I don't remember the name, has farmed your ground the last 2 years. This year, you only have the parcel east of Smith Road and south of Veterans Way. It's listed as 11 acres tillable. In the past, you also had the ground that's a part of the residential development, but that work looks like it'll go forward in a fashion that won't permit cultivating this year.
Who was the one that was in the past?
Riegers. I don't remember the name they do business under. D&L.
The other one is a little over $500 more proposed, so.
On face value, the H&I would be because of the cost difference or the pricing difference would be the logical one to go with. Is there anything hidden in the weeds?
I'm not aware of anything. The property that you have available to cultivate keeps getting smaller and smaller, and I assume that means it's less attractive to someone to move equipment in and do the work. Same type lease as last year. If you can sell that property and develop it, you give back basically the rent money, and that's the end of it. There's a per right of way if you don't use up the whole site, they get some crop off of it, and there's a formula for figuring out how to deal with that.
I'm sorry, Jim.
It looks like that you don't have to give back, we wouldn't have to give back as much with the one.
I think they're both set up where you would never lose more than what they pay you. Or you would never rebate more than what they paid you.
Anybody care to make a motion about either of these?
I would move that we make a motion that we accept the H&I
Okay.
lease.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
In your motion, Ken, would you authorize David to sign on the commission's behalf?
Authorize President David Weigel to sign
Second.
the lease.
Ken, your mic wasn't on. Can you remake the motion so that we have it?
I'm sorry?
Can you restate your motion because
Yes.
the mic wasn't?
I would make a motion that we accept the lease from H&I Farms to lease that property for agricultural purposes, and that the president, Dr. David Weigel, has the authority to sign the lease.
Darrell seconding the motion. Any other discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I believe there's a copy of the lease in your folder, David. Okay.
Those opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Rezoning application now that we were talking about.
Yes, so Beacon Builders has already signed it. The application is in the folder also. If you're in agreement with petitioning for the rezoning, you simply, I think, need to authorize that through a motion and authorize David on your behalf to sign the petition.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Darren. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jamie. Any discussion about this? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Then we have the bullet point multi-use path over State Road 3.
Yes. So now the question is, do you want to invest in a study to figure out the feasibility of doing something like that? Darren, I think you'd ask about multiple alignments. I think we could look at other alignments since we haven't entered into an agreement with the consultant yet.
Would we be the only ones, or are there other city entities that would be involved in the feasibility study or not?
I haven't seen anybody show up with a checkbook yet, David. So yes, I think the short answer is it would be at this point Redevelopment Commission.
Any idea what that might cost?
No, but I think the path forward is if you're interested in doing this, we will identify a consultant and ask them to propose a fee.
We could approve that next month.
Yeah. Right now, I'm asking for a bit more than a wink and a nod, but not an approval of an agreement for services.
That would make sense.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Darren. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken.
Any other discussion about that? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to our next thing is approval of claims. We have a small amount for all of our claims this month, totaling $2,492.08. Hopefully everybody's reviewed that.
It says a regular claim for December also on here.
Anybody know what that regular claim for December is? I thought we took care of everything last month. I don't see anything in here from December.
How
Everything.
much was it?
It doesn't say, it just says December 2022 regular claim, singular.
That was probably an error on the part of the agenda preparer.
Well, we need to talk to him.
Yeah, he forgot to delete that.
I would say that's probably exactly what happened. In your financial report, there is one, so first off, you have both 2023, the month of January, and you also have all of 22. Going forward, you will only get, unless you want something different, 23 year-to-date. So hang on to the 22 one, if that's important to you, please. If you want 22 over and over and over again, we can't do that. one thing changed from what you were given a month ago. In your January meeting, in December of '22, it did not reflect the county tax settlement. That number is now added in. If you look in December of '22, you will see, I don't remember the numbers, $3,700 and 250 some. David, you're looking at it.
500.
Or 500 and some, excuse me.
It was June. 547,552.37, and then 3773.14. About 550,000.
Yeah. So your total should be up to date now.
Good. I'd entertain a motion to pay our bills of $2,492.08. Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
I have a question. On some of these funds that, we have just a couple $100 in them, is there a way to clean it up? So, like it hadn't been, it doesn't look like anything has been done for 2 or 3 years. And there may be a reason, I just don't know.
I had that very same discussion with our clerk treasurer, and
Too hard to move them?
I didn't get a lot of enthusiasm for addressing that.
Is that just dead?
But I can take that question to her and see. I think you have like 3 total accounts or funds. I think one of them may be money left over from the bond for the purchase of the Scheidler property. I don't know what the other one is, because Veterans Way was a draw bond and you never had. Oh, wait a minute. There could be some money sitting there, because I think there was a cash distribution in the very beginning.
2 Bank of New York ones, and then just a couple of them. I looked through the history.
Yeah,
They
they
had
don't
no-
change. All they do is maybe add interest.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 cents, and it's like.
So I will carry that question to the clerk treasurer's office and see if I get a better answer. Or we could invite her to a future meeting of yours if you all want that.
Let's see what you can come back with first.
Okay.
Our next scheduled meeting is 4 weeks from today, March 2nd, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. right here. I will not be in town that day. I won't be able to be at the meeting, but Darren said he would be able to conduct the meeting in my absence, so hopefully the rest of you can make it so we have a quorum.
Super. I asked for responses and I got a couple back to know that it looked like you'd have a quorum. We've had that one occasion where we didn't, so when you all can let somebody know if you might not be here, it is truly helpful. Mark had let us know that he was a little under the weather and wasn't sure. And he's clearly not here, so.
All right, well, that concludes our meeting this evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Meeting is adjourned.